Our students are the future. How we advance innovation and impact and approach equity in their classrooms will determine how we thrive as a world community. The status quo just won't cut it. That's why we're here to break the grade. Hello, breakers and difference makers. I'm Josh Chernikoff, host of How I Broke That. I'm a two-time entrepreneur in the education space, and I've successfully exited both of those companies. I've experienced my fair share of breaks in my life, and I'm here to bring my signature approach to my new show, Breaking the Grade. I'm embarking on this special journey alongside my good friend and mentor, John Gamba, Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn GSE. In our podcast, you'll hear from emerging business owners in the education space who are working to transform education as we know it. Tune in as we hear about industry trends, unique principles and practices, and the attempts that have and haven't worked for our grade-breaking guests. So fellow entrepreneurs and educators, what do you think? Are you ready to take a hammer to the education space and break the grade? Hey breakers, welcome back to another edition of Breaking the Grade. This is an interview I was really honored to do. I got to talk to Paul Vallas. And if you're from the education space, and most likely you are if you're listening to this show, you know Paul Vallas. Paul was the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools, Philadelphia Public Schools, and New Orleans Public Schools. In fact, he led the Recovery School District in Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. Today, he's the co-founder of the Vallas Group and Global Educator, two companies I know and respect. Paul obviously has been the decision maker overseeing multi-billion-dollar budgets as the superintendent of those three very large school districts. So he has a specific lens that he uses and he talked about during our conversation. That's why he's the perfect guest for our show, because he's going to talk to you about what he looked for in solutions like yours. So if you're tired of leaving messages and leaving meetings with nothing, this episode will show you how to turn interest into signed contracts. I'm excited for you to hear from Paul Vallas. Welcome to Breaking the Grade. Thank you for joining me on this live and very outdoor episode of Breaking the Grade. This is something, well, we're breaking our own norms here. Usually I do it in the studio or inside at a conference. You and I are doing it under the sun here in San Diego. Nice place for an interview.
Absolutely. Much better than the studio.
Okay, cool. So first, give everybody like a minute or two of your journey in education. Then we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty that matters to the audience. Not that your journey doesn't matter. Just tell them who you are.
Well, Paul Vallas, education superintendent, longtime public servant. I actually had the privilege of running the largest school districts in 4 different states, including the city of Chicago public schools back in '95 when Mayor Richard Daley got control over the schools. And it also included rebuilding schools in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina as head of the Recovery School District of Louisiana, so longtime superintendent. I've also done a lot of international work, international relief work in Haiti and Chile and other countries, usually disaster relief, usually going in to figure out how to rebuild their school systems.
Why do you think you get called in after the disasters?
Oh, I don't know. You know, once you get a reputation for coming in and doing disaster relief, and the willingness to take on those jobs, I think people just, they call you, and they call you again and again. But I've always relished the opportunity to go into the most challenging situations to try to make a difference. So it's always been something that I've gravitated towards, and I've always been. And sometimes it requires that you make that there's a willingness to make sacrifices, not only financial sacrifices, but sometimes, for example, with the international work, it requires that you be away from home. It just requires, and in the case of my work in Haiti, that challenge put me in the hospital about 3 times. So
Wow.
you've got to be willing to take risks.
I would imagine that those challenges are kind of like kids. You love them all, but is there one that sticks out more than another?
No, they're all the same. The challenges are the same. All the school districts that I have run, that I've been responsible for, I haven't run them as much as I've led them, collective leadership. They've all been among the most challenged school districts. I don't think I have never run a district that was not less than 80% minority or less than 80% poverty. So many of the challenges are the same. And of course, there are constants to high-performing schools, and there's a DNA to quality schools that exists regardless of the type of school, whether it's public, private, or parochial, or for that matter, whether you're doing work in Haiti or Chile or consulting on schools in Bangladesh or Pakistan. Of course, I did work in Pakistan after the floods, or for that matter, running major school districts in the United States. The commonalities of effective instruction and of progressive student learning are the same.
So let's talk about this conference that we're at, ASU GSV. It's a little conference here on the map, right? Okay, so it's a big conference. What are you doing here at ASU GSV?
Well, yeah, a couple things. First of all, trying to connect with people that I've worked with over the years. Obviously, I haven't been involved in this game for a long time. I have to laugh because I actually ran into one of my elementary school students, Terrell School. He was a 7th grader, and now, of course, he just retired as a superintendent. So
Wow.
you're getting old when you're meeting your students who went on to become superintendents.
Oh.
But we're also here because I'm working with a not-for-profit is 311 Literacy, and the goal of 311 Literacy is really to promote reading, to really develop a love for reading, and it's a program for promoting literacy, and I would say that the flagship of our program is this what is rapidly becoming an international reading competition, where children right now from schools in the United States as well as schools in Mexico can compete. They can compete for reading hours. It gets recorded. They can get rewarded and recognized and win prizes and things like that. So the whole idea is to constantly have young people reading, becoming engaged in reading, developing a love for reading. This summer we're going to have our first summer reading tournament.
Nice.
We've run this tournament 3 times, but we've never run it over the summer. But the summer tournament that's coming up, we anticipate having about 40 to 50,000 students participating, and it really gives young people an opportunity, children an opportunity to be engaged through the summer. Mm-hmm. There's so much learning lost during the summer. This really gives them an opportunity to read literally all summer long, to compete, to obviously interact with students from other countries, and at the same time to get recognized, and in some cases to actually be rewarded, because the kids will compete for reading minutes individually, but their schools will also compete. So I've had the distinct honor to visit the schools, to recognize the schools with the most reading minutes and the students with the most reading minutes. So it's really been a joyful experience, and I think it's a very effective way to help young people develop a love for reading.
Having run a tutoring company, I know learning loss very well. I swam against the current for many years, trying to get parents to do tutoring over the summer, only to get to late August and then come say, my kid has forgotten everything and they've got a homework packet. I would bet that you have had many opportunities over the years to be a part of for-profit and non-profit organizations. Why this one?
Well, first of all, I've always gravitated toward non-profit organizations. I've actually rarely consulted, if ever, for a for-profit company, for-profit organizations. This one is important because I really think, well, first of all, the subject is so important. I think the technology, the ability to access as many as 10,000 different books online is an enormous resource. And of course, those books are categorized, so both the teachers as well as the students, or the parents, if you're participating and you're homeschooling your child, you have an opportunity to literally select the books. But I think the technology and the fact that this whole concept of helping children be engaged throughout the summer, because as you pointed out, learning loss is a real crisis. It's a real crisis in this country, and it impacts most low-income families because the majority of children who live below the poverty level who go to public schools are children from single-parent households. The families are struggling to have ends meet. A lot of times those programs, those schools are not funded well enough to have extensive summer school programs. That learning loss can be can sometimes almost be catastrophic. Teachers find themselves starting the school year and the kids are already behind. So this whole idea of getting the kids engaged, off the street, reading, their minds humming along, I just think it's really important, not only for the children, but it's important for the teachers, because you want the students to start the next year ready, whether it's ready from going to 6th or 7th grade, ready for 7th grade work and ready for 8th grade work.
Sure.
So many teachers will tell you that a lot of times the first month or so they're helping the students get caught up, because that 10 weeks or more of idle time can really degrade a lot of what was learned and what was mastered the previous year.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's step away. Keep your superintendent hat on, and I'd like you to talk to our audience, which is a lot of product people, a lot of educators who have started businesses, and these folks. What we work on is first of all figuring out the transformation that occurs for their product for you, the superintendent, or you, the principal, or you, the teacher. So can you talk about what were looking for in your school districts when somebody came and talked to you or your staff about a product that they wanted to bring into your school district?
Well, especially in my later superintendentships, I was always sensitive to the need to basically offer the type of curriculum and instructional programs and curriculum instructional supports to recognize the reality that the population is becoming increasingly Spanish speaking. The great thing about the literacy program, about the reading program, is it's a bilingual program. It helps students who are interested in learning Spanish. It helps Spanish students who are interested in learning English. So right now, our biggest international partners are schools from Mexico. So that is something that I think more and more schools are becoming attuned to. But when I was superintendent, I would always, there are what I call essential practices that exist in all high-performing schools. And you see them whether the schools are public or private or parochial. You see them whether it's a school in Pakistan or a school in England, or for that matter, a school in the United States. And schools that have quality curriculum instructional models, schools that use data to assess student progress, schools that have interventions so that when students are struggling, the right interventions are prescribed. You're not letting them continue to struggle. Schools that have the type of curriculum instructional supports and professional development to go with it so that the teachers are equipped to provide quality instruction in the classroom, and schools that allocate the needed instructional time on task, whether it's extended school day or it's an aggressive summer school program to slow learning loss. Schools that have those things are all high-performing schools, regardless of the makeup of those schools. So I've always looked at products to see how they can enhance those essential practices. Does it improve the quality of my curriculum? Does it allow me to use data more effectively? Is it a way for me to enhance or to lengthen the learning experience? Which is why after-school programs and summer school programs are so important. And can those type of programs be scaled? So those are the things that I'm always looking at. I mean, there are so many wasted programs and so many wasted initiatives out there. So I try to be focused when I'm looking at products that can enhance what I call the DNA of high-performing schools, which is curriculum, which is the effective use of data, which is interventions, which is the type of instructional leadership, training your teachers and supporting your teachers, and which is also allocating enough instructional time on task so that because nothing closes the achievement faster than more instructional time on task.
Okay, so that's very helpful. I want to also just ask about just the finesse, just about getting into your office and getting a chance to talk to you, or at a conference like this. If you went to a conference and when you were superintendent, like what did you want a founder of an ed tech company or an aftercare program, what did you want them to do to approach you, to have a conversation with you? What did you not want them to do?
Well, first of all, the first thing is, are you advocating for a quality product? And so because it has to be a quality product that gets you into the door. The second thing is, can that quality product accommodate my needs? In other words, you're there to provide a service. How can that product, if it's a quality product, be customized to address my needs? How can it fit in to my matrix, so to speak? And then the third thing is it affordable? Is it scalable? Because, my God, I've been superintendent for a long time, and every single time I take over a district, they've always been districts that have been struggling, always required turnaround. These districts will always have a plethora of programs. Every program, they seem to have it. But it was the lack of coordination, the lack of integration. So, of course, it's got to be a quality product that fits the right need, that addresses a need. But it's got to be a quality product that can fit within my overall education strategy. And that means whoever is advancing their product needs to be able to be to demonstrate how that product is flexible so it can fit within my overall educational plan. And then obviously the question is affordability and scalability.
Sure. Last question for you. This is not a political question, but you have kind of mentioned waste a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And waste is a big word right now. So just talk to me about the mindset of a superintendent, given the current climate. It's April 4th. This experiment with the new administration started on January the 20th. What's a current superintendent thinking, do you think?
Well, obviously with the rhetoric going on, there's a lot of fears that the new administration is going to come in and gut federal programs. Let me point out that when it comes to education, there's two issues. One is the fate of the Department of Education itself and the fate of its programs. I think the focus of, and I can't speak, I'm not a representative of the current administration, but I think their focus has been on dismantling the U.S. Department of Education, but not dismantling the programs like the Title I programs, DSL programs, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are two different things. So number one, I wouldn't be panicking yet, and I'd be focusing on the right thing. There are a lot of people who will contend that previous presidents have often used the U.S. Department of Education to assert their will over school districts. Sometimes, if you remember, during the Obama years, the teacher unions actually aligned with conservatives in Congress to kind of slow down the race to the top, the mandates, or I should say the pressure that the U.S. Department of Education was placing on schools. During the Bush administration, there was this big push for school districts by the federal government to hire these private contractors to provide tutoring services.
I remember that.
So let's face it, that department has been used as a political department. But I'm not panicking yet because I don't see any indication that they're going to come in there and they're going to cut the basic programs, like the student loan programs, et cetera, or like the Title I programs, because they would have to have the approval of Congress to make that happen, and that's not what they're talking about. So obviously that's a concern. But so my message to superintendents would be, don't panic yet. Let me also point out that depending on the schools, on the average, the federal government provides about 10% of funding for local schools. Obviously, it varies from school to school, and in some school districts, it's much less. Now, that's still a lot of money, but again, the overwhelming vast majority of the money comes from state and local taxes. So, I'm not going to panic yet. I do want to point out, though, that it's really important, and this was a mistake that many districts made during COVID, where, $200 billion in money going to K-12 schools, and you have districts that are now broke. In one district that will remain unnamed that I'm very familiar with, they increased their head count by 9,000 despite losing 38,000 students, and now, of course, they're facing massive budget deficits because they spent money that was one-time money. So, so we've got to. So obviously, districts are going to have to tighten their belts. I think what is critical in budgeting is that you understand what you understand what your primary mission is, and you need to build your budget around supporting what I call the essential practices, the quality curriculum, the interventions, providing enough instructional time on task, providing the supplemental programs. I mean, it's important when you set your priorities, those budgetary priorities begin with the classroom, and then you work your way out. And that's what I've always done. I've always viewed my budgets, which is why I've always, for the most part, been able to balance my budgets and actually build surpluses. I've always built my budgets from the school, from the classroom out, prioritizing first, ensuring that the essential supports are provided to the classroom, and then everything else taking a back seat.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the approach that you have to take. That's the approach that you have to take with budget, but with budgeting. But but I would be remiss if I did not say that if there are superintendents out there, or for that matter principals, or for that matter teachers, or for that matter parents that are interested in participating in our reading tournaments, they can go online, 311literacy.org, and they can get the information that they need, and they can sign up. It's an extraordinary program, and I think it's got great potential. We're hoping to have just dozens of countries participating. We've had real good meetings with representatives from India and from Pakistan. Educators who have come here, have participated in this summit, as they call it, as they refer to it, who are really interested in this type of participation too, particularly their ability to interact with students in the United States. So we're very excited about it.
Well, we will put the information in the show notes so people can join, and obviously if any program has your endorsement, given your background, people should check it out. And you said several times, I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. I don't think you're a person who hits the panic button at all. Clearly, that's why people bring you into these disaster situations. So thank you for the information that you gave about Literacy 311, superintendents, and to our audience. We really appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure. And I'm well published online, so if people want to get more information about me or my background, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or for that matter, they can just Google me. Having been a political candidate once or twice, you always get some stuff you would prefer not.
Not coming from my audience.
Right.
We're only nice people.
But it is what it is when you've been in the political arena. But I'm just really optimistic. I truly believe. I mean, I've had great academic success in every school district I've had. In Philadelphia, over a 9-year period, beginning with my superintendentship, that lasted about 5 years. Test scores tripled and reading scores doubled.
Wow.
And now, how did that happen across all demographics without changing the standards, without changing the exams? It happened because in partnership with the terrific leadership of the teachers union at that time, the late Ted Kirsch and Jerry Jordan, who I believe is still president at Philadelphia, they really focused on the essentials, and everything we did was making sure that those classrooms were like watertight compartments. And when the budget turbulence hit, those classrooms never suffered because the budgets were all built from the classroom on up.
Interesting.
And I think that has always been the key to, I think, my success and to other